Donald Trump has tried to make this really about China. The only thing he can do, looking back at the past 15 years of attempted and failed negotiations, is to really push North Korea's main ally and kind of source of resources to do something. So I think even the moving of the carrier fleet, was it the USS Vinson Group, that is really about pressuring the Chinese, implying the threat of action. But I don't think he's serious about doing something. Anyone on his security staff will have told him that unilateral military action on the peninsula is a nightmare scenario.
Because the risks are too great in terms of what comes back.
Absolutely. Seoul being within artillery range. I mean, I think you spoke earlier on this program of 13,000 artillery pieces within range of Seoul. The potential use of chemical weapons. And this is a regime that is not afraid of causing mass casualties.
What of North Korea's intentions? We saw this failed missile test, so clearly the intent is there, even if the execution wasn't on this occasion.
It depends on how whether you have a very kind of maximalist concern about them. I think at the worst, they want to check US nuclear deterrence in order to continue their provocations with the South. You could even argue that the military still, carries dreams of unification at their hands. That's a worst case scenario. On the more benign side, they want to survive. The Kim family wants to stay in power. They use the promise of a strong state with the military to keep the support of the military. So I think it just depends on that range of things. But if you're a planner in Washington, Seoul, or Tokyo, you may have to think worst case scenario.
So what are the Chinese weighing up just now, do you think?
I think the Chinese have really gotten away easy and lightly over if you think about during the Cold War, the United States stopped a number of its allies from developing their own nuclear weapons, including South Korea. The Chinese have never been put in that position. And I think what we saw in Florida at the summit was Trump really putting North Korea on their doorstep. He's also kind of, as we've seen with the tweet, hinted that he will go easy on the trade issues if they resolve it. What can they do? They can offer, nuclear deterrence to the North Koreans. Say, if you get rid of your own, nuclear system, we will extend deterrence and put you under our nuclear umbrella. They have the power to stop the North Koreans because simply the North Korean economy is so dependent on China. The real question is, Beijing's strategic calculus and how they weigh up their options.
Because they look on that border between themselves and North Korea, and they would fear an imploding government and all the implications that brings with it. Presumably.
Absolutely. I think the collapse thing, they've used that, I think maybe too much. They've never been really willing to, they've been willing to step up in New York at the United Nations, but I think on the border, they've watered down a lot of what they've accomplished in New York. So if we could see them just doing a little bit more, stopping the coal ships was very demonstrative, but how about all the weapons? We're seeing these trucks going through the parade, many of them of Chinese manufacture and origin. I just don't believe that they're not doing all they can.
Just as a final thought, we saw some very doom-laden headlines on the front of some of the newspapers yesterday.
Yes, we did.
Are they going too far at this point?
The headlines? Or?
Yes, the headlines.
I think, given the stakes of the whole Korean peninsula, it's unsurprising that people do weigh these things up that way. So I wouldn't like to judge either way.